All right, have a look at this photo. Okay, it's my friend. We're on the beach. It was actually at a wedding. I've just turned that photo, which I took on here, the Honor 400 Pro, into a video. Have a look at this. Now, you may never use this, and you may think it's a bit creepy and weird. It is a bit, and there are some limitations I'll get to later, but Honor's new AI image to video, which turns any photo into a 5-second video using Google's latest cloud AI wizardry, is the first time we've seen this on a phone. Even George Russell looks impressed. And it gives you this kind of futuristic, almost Minority Report vignette of a memory. This is so much fun to play with. But since I am already boring you all to death with my holiday snaps, can I just show you one more thing before we properly dive in? And have a look at this. 1x photo, then punching into the 3x telephoto. This is with the Honor 400 Pro. Then zooming all the way in up to 50 times, which looks pretty ropey. But the same photo with Honor's AI Super Zoom enabled, that is so much better. Also, the camera on this thing has no right to be as good as it is given the price. Let me back up for a second. I should probably tell you what the hell I'm talking about. This is the brand spanking new Honor 400. This is the Honor 400 Pro. And they reckon the 400 series will be the best mid-range phones of 2025. Now, I've had these for a couple of weeks, and a big thank you to Honor for sending them over for me to have a little play with before the launch. And while I will give you an overview of them both and see how they compare, I'm going to focus mostly on the Pro for this video. It's also nearly 30 degrees Celsius in my studio right now, so I'm just going to use these to fan myself for a bit. Right, so I have the Honor 400 in gold here and also the Honor 400 Pro in grey. No chargers in the box, sadly, but that's par for the course these days, and they're both very nice looking phones. But let me break down the specs for you, and as the name would suggest, the 400 Pro is the higher end model here with a bigger 6.7-inch display. We have a beefier Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 chip, that's basically last year's flagship chip, faster charging and wireless charging, a third camera lens, the telephoto, and both phones run macOS 9 on top of Android 15 and share all the same AI features for the camera, the writing tools, their Magic Portal, that crazy AI image to video. And don't forget, Honor now promised 6 years of Android updates and security patches. What do you make of these in terms of the design? I actually really like them. I'm not quite sure what you'd call this camera module. It's like a very curvy, square thing, but it's nice. The only downside, and it's not Honor's fault, is that because of the UK regulations, they have to put these sort of logos at the bottom right here. There's nothing like having a picture of a wheelie bin on the back of your new phone. Sorry about that, Honor. But the first thing you'll notice is the Pro is a touch bigger, 6.7 versus 6.55-inch screens, but they're both flat, although the Pro does give us an ever so slight curve at the edge of the glass, right the way around there. Nice thin symmetrical bezels, plus we have this cutout at the top here for the camera, which by the way doubles as a, well, basically copy and paste of Apple's Dynamic Island when you have notifications from certain apps or you're playing music. Although you can see here the Pro has this second camera next to the shared 50 megapixel selfie. That's actually a combined flicker, color temperature, and ambient light sensor, which helps improve the quality of your selfies. Aside from the slightly different sizes though, these screens are identical to each other. Same 120Hz AMOLED, same resolution. They both also peak at 5000 nits, that's for outdoor HDR brightness for a small percentage of the screen. And I'm also very pleased to report that all their excellent eye comfort features are present and correct here. It still amazes me that the big phone brands like Apple and Samsung aren't following Honor's lead here. We've got 3840Hz PWM dimming, and you can see here when I change the shutter speed of my camera, it refreshes the screen much faster, particularly at lower brightnesses, so as you're scrolling in bed, it's much easier on your eyes. We also have their dynamic dimming, AI defocus, circadian night mode, which gives the screen a warmer tone. There's also a very nifty new motion sickness relief feature, where you have a bunch of dots on the screen to kind of help your brain align with the movement of the car relative to the screen, and it really does help. It's funny because last year you could have spent £1,000, more than £1,000 to get a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 in a flagship phone. Of course, there are other flagship features as well as the chip, but it's really cool to see that kind of trickle down to a more affordable option here with the 400 Pro. So this has the 8 Gen 3 and this has the 7 Gen 3. But side by side, you can see the 400 Pro scores significantly higher. As I say, both fine for everyday use, but for the most demanding games, and if you want the highest frame rates, then you'll want the 400 Pro. Both also get dual SIM and eSIM support. The 400 also has Wi-Fi 6, whereas the 400 Pro gets Wi-Fi 6E and 7. Although, of course, you'll need a compatible router to take advantage of that. router. I'm English, I say router. Also for the battery, we're getting a bit of a raw deal here in the UK and Europe due to European regulations, but in China and other global markets, both these phones will have a huge 6,000 mAh battery, but here in the UK, in Europe, we have a 5,300 mAh battery. That's the same in both. So quite a reduction, but still very, very impressive, especially considering the S25 Ultra still has a 5,000 mAh cell. We're still comfortably looking at a day and a half of use. As for charging, well, it is BYOC, bring your own charger, but if you get the compatible supercharger that maxes out their speeds, then you'll get 66 watts of wired charging from the 400, but the Pro will give you 100 watts of wired charging, and we're talking 0 to 100 in about 40 minutes, and we also get 50 watts wireless supercharging on the Pro, no wireless on the regular one. I feel like such a tourist. I'm literally here taking pictures, filming myself, which is always embarrassing. But I'm going to test the camera. This is being shot obviously on the 400 Pro, 4K 60 with the rear camera. The selfie camera does top out at 4K 30, which is a slight compromise, but not the end of the world. But that sun really is very strong right now, so I'll be curious how this deals with the sweaty highlights of my forehead. I'm also just walking, I'm holding this at arm's length. But what do you think of the video quality of the 400 Pro? Now, I've spent most of my time with the 400 Pro, but aside from the telephoto lens, it does share the same 200 megapixel main camera with its 1/1.4 inch sensor and f1.9 aperture with OIS and EIS as the regular 400. It also has the same 12 megapixel ultra wide, which doubles as a macro, and the same 50 megapixel portrait selfie camera. And of course, their AI on an image engine handling all the processing behind the scenes. But the Pro does have this third lens, a 3x optical telephoto. There's also a 6x shortcut here, but once you zoom in beyond 15 times, that's where the AI super zoom option kicks in. Now, you do need an internet connection to use this, but once you take the shot, after a few seconds of processing in the gallery, a pretty rough looking zoomed photo morphs into this genuinely usable shot. Which is only possible because Honor have developed their own telephoto enhancement large model, that's the AI, that's been trained on 12.4 billion parameters, giving you much higher detail and more impressive shots. Although I should say that every photo I'm showing you here has not been edited in any way. It's all straight out of the phone. Let me just show you. When you're taking a regular photo here, you have natural, vibrant, and authentic color options. Now, unlike Apple's smart photo styles, you can't change this afterwards when you take the shot, although genuinely I just go for natural, and then if I want, I can edit it afterwards. For portraits though, building on last year's Honor 200 series, we have the same hardcore vibrant, color, and also the black and white classic, so-called artistic profiles, but we also have these 6 new film simulation tones, giving you very different looks for your portraits. However, I have found that you can't use the AI Enhanced Portrait or the AI Super Zoom when using one of their film simulations. So I mostly stick to the hardcore vibrant for my portraits. Naturally, it wouldn't be an Honor video without me jumping in the air, getting a few side eyes from the neighbors, but to show off their AI motion sensing capture. When the camera detects a specific fast-moving subject, like running into frame or jumping around, it'll take the shot and give you some ridiculously well-focused photos. But to be honest with you, even without this mode, I found the 400 and the 400 Pro handles moving subjects in photos and portraits really well. And I must admit, it did perform better in low light than I was expecting, again, given the price. It does fall down with moving subjects and motion, there is a bit of blur there, but generally speaking, with the night mode, you can get some pretty decent shots with this. Although low light video does suffer a bit more. This is the rear camera, 4K 30. I think overall, I am pretty happy with the camera on this phone, especially given the price, which I'll come to in a second. But I think perhaps video does have a little bit of room for improvement, and in low light especially, you can sort of see that this is not a flagship phone, but that's what the Magic 7 series is for. Okay, so let's say you've taken your shot, you're happy with it. Fire up the Gallery app and have a play with their AI editing tools. You've got Eraser, you can erase passers-by, remove reflections, all fairly self-explanatory and seem to work well. Outpainting is a pretty nifty way of expanding your shot without having to open it in, say, Photoshop. And also AI Upscale, which does a really nice job of improving older or low-res shots in your gallery. Having all these tools built into the dedicated Gallery app is actually really helpful. But the headline, the standout, ridiculously good, show your mates, can't wait to play with it when you get it off in the morning, every time you take a photo you want to try it, is of course the AI image to video. The key point here is that Honor's 400 series are the first phones to get this, using Google's latest Veo AI model. Couple of things to bear in mind. It is free to start with, and you can do up to 10 generations a day, although eventually I'm told it will become a subscription model, but I think you get 2 months for free when you buy it. And also you have to assume this will be coming to other phones as well, although we don't know when. But don't let that spoil the fun. Select your photo, and it doesn't have to have been taken on the Honor either, and after a couple of minutes of processing, you get the result, which you can then save in portrait or landscape. The good news is that you actually can't prompt it in any way. There's no text input, you can't voice prompt, you can't say, hey, George Russell, punch me in the face, or let's have some children. You know, the technology is very impressive, but as with anything nice, people will always find a way to abuse it. So the good news here is that it's basically limited by Google's own safeguards behind the scenes. Except for a few maybe weird hand gestures and face movements, you can't make it do anything like illegal or weird or inappropriate. So it's a pretty safe environment, at least in my experience so far, to play around in, which is a good thing. Now, in terms of AI beyond the camera, we have Google's Gemini Assistant built in. We have Honor's Magic Portal 2, and so if you grab some text or an address or an image, or you use your knuckle to search for something, you can then drag it to the edge of the screen and it'll bring up some contextually relevant apps. Like you could put an address into Maps or an image into a Google search, or a photo you've taken into your Instagram stories. We also have their AI deepfake detection, which is pretty ironic given the AI image to video. We have AI translation, including live translation, particularly useful if you have a pair of Honor's earphones as well. You can have a chat with someone and have it translated live. And of course you get their array of writing tools, including transcriptions and summarizing, all that good stuff. But it's great to see all the features that we have on their flagship phones on these more affordable options. Oh, and Honor have also confirmed that the 400 series will get 6 years of Android updates and security patches. So, how much for these guys? The Honor 400 will start at €449, whereas the Honor 400 Pro will actually cost you €799, which is a fair bit more, but in Europe and in the UK, the only SKU available of this will be with 12 gigs of RAM and 512 storage, as I say, versus 8 and 256. So what do you reckon? Is the new Honor 400 series the best mid-range phones in 2025? Let me know what you make of these in the comments below, and also I will leave a link in the description if you fancy buying one for yourself. And I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Jab. Thanks for watching.